The greatest strategic failure in marketing is the utility trap, believing that people buy your product for what it does, while ignoring the neurological fact that humans actually buy tools to signal to the world who they are. Let's just let that sink in for a second, because that one neurological fact, it changes everything. It's the secret key that unlocks the most legendary brands, and it's the dividing line between a product people just use and a brand that people truly love.
So how do you build a brand that people just can't leave? Well, that's what we're here to talk about, identity-based branding, and this powerful idea of building a psychological moat. Now, this isn't your typical moat, filled with patents or low prices. Nope. This is a defensive wall built from pure human psychology. It's a connection so deep that leaving feels less like a smart choice and more like a personal betrayal. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're gonna tackle the big mistake everyone's making, what I call the great functional illusion. Then we'll get into the solution, this really cool thing called the symbolic architecture. After that, we'll geek out on the science behind it all with the psychology of belonging. Then we'll get practical with the identity-first framework. And finally, we'll see how this all leads to the ultimate win, turning your brand from a choice into a necessity. All right, let's dive right in with section 1, the great functional illusion. We're talking about the crisis of feature parity here. And look, this isn't some abstract theory. This is the real, invisible force that's holding back so many businesses right now. For years, marketing has been built on this massive lie, the idea of the rational buyer. We picture this person with a spreadsheet, logically ticking boxes, comparing features, always picking the best tool. But come on, that's just not how people work. Think about your last big purchase, maybe a phone. Were you really just looking at processor speeds, or was there something else going on? Something about what that brand says about you? Exactly. Our brains aren't calculators. They're social signaling machines first and foremost. And this right here, this comparison, it's everything. On one side, you've got the old way, the functional illusion. It's this idea that people buy what a product does. And that thinking sucks you right into these endless, brutal feature wars. Your product just becomes a replaceable part. But then you look at the reality. The social signaling machine. This tells us people buy what a product helps them become. And that changes the whole game. You're not selling features anymore. You're offering a badge of identity. So why is this such a big deal right now? Well, think back to the early 2010s. If you had some unique code, you were safe. That was your moat. But then things changed fast. By the late 2010s, with open source and agile teams everywhere, those moats just vanished. Any cool new feature, your competitor could copy it in a few weeks. And that lands us right where we are today, the commodity trap. Everyone's product looks the same, does the same thing. So what's left to compete on? Price. And that, my friends, is a race to the bottom. Nobody wins that game. Okay, so if fighting over features is a trap and competing on price is a dead end, what's left? Well, that brings us to our solution. Section 2, the symbolic architecture. And this isn't just another marketing tactic. Think of it more like you're an architect, and you're building the engine of belonging for your people. So at the heart of this whole thing is what we can call a value mirroring engine. You're not just selling a product anymore. You're building an entire symbolic world for your users. And this world is built on 3 pillars: the enemy, the virtue, and the badge. Get these 3 things right, and they work together to create this incredibly powerful tribal identity. Let's break them down. First up, the enemy. Look, every great story needs a villain, right? But we're not talking about another company here. The enemy is an idea. It's the old way. It's that shared frustration that everyone in your community just hates. A perfect example is Apple's 1984 ad. Their enemy wasn't IBM, it was conformity. It was Big Brother. See? When you make it clear what you stand against, what you stand for becomes so much stronger. So if the enemy is what you're fighting against, the virtue is what you're fighting for. It's your flag on the hill. It's that shared value, that North Star that pulls everyone together. For Apple, it was simple. Think different. A rallying cry for creativity, for rebellion. This is the real emotional heart of your brand. It's why people don't just use what you make, they believe in what you're doing. Okay, last piece of the puzzle, the badge. All that belief on the inside, it needs a way to get out. It needs to be visible. That's the badge. It's the public signal that tells the world, I'm one of them, without you having to say a single word. And for Apple, what was the badge? It was the product itself. Those white earbuds, the glowing apple on the laptop. You saw that and you instantly knew. You were looking at a member of the Think Different tribe. The badge is what makes belonging visible.
So when you bring these three things together, the enemy, the virtue, and the badge, something amazing happens. You kick off this self-reinforcing loop. We can call it aspirational identity mapping. And it works because when people show off your badge, they get rewarded with social currency, status, feeling like they belong. They start living your brand's values, and pretty soon their own personal aspirations get all tangled up with your brand's story. It's powerful stuff.
All right, so this all sounds great, right? But the big question is, why does it actually work? I mean, why is this whole thing so incredibly effective? Well, the answer isn't in some marketing book. It's hardwired into our brains. Let's get into the psychology of belonging.
So this whole idea is built on something called social identity theory. And really, it's super simple when you break it down. A huge piece of who we think we are comes from the groups we're a part of. We are biologically hardwired to want to belong to a tribe. This isn't some new thing, it's a deep, primal survival instinct. It's as basic as needing food and water. So when your brand can actually offer a tribe, you're tapping into something incredibly fundamental. And here's where it gets really interesting. Once your brand is tied to someone's identity, their whole view of you changes. You stop being this external vendor that they're naturally skeptical of. Instead, you become an internal asset. It becomes part of what psychologists call their extended self, which is just a fancy way of saying it becomes a piece of them. It's not that company's product anymore. It's my brand. It's my community. And think about what that means. To leave the brand is to leave that identity behind. Suddenly, the cost of switching isn't about money or features anymore. It's emotional. It's huge. Leaving feels like admitting to yourself and to everyone else that you're not part of that tribe anymore. And that emotional pain, that's a really, really hard thing to overcome. And that is your psychological moat. It's not built out of patents or code. It's built out of identity, out of belonging. Your competitor? Sure, they can copy your features. They can even beat you on price, but they can't copy the meaning you've built with your community. They can't just steal that sense of self, and that is a wall they will never, ever be able to climb.
Okay, so we've talked about the what, this whole crisis of everything looking the same. We've talked about the why, the deep psychology of belonging. So now let's get to the how. How do you actually do this? That's section 4, the identity first framework. So yeah, the big question is, how do you master this? How do you go from just hearing about these ideas to actually putting them into practice?
Okay, here it is, the 4-step framework. First, define the antagonist. You've got to get obsessed with what your user is fighting against. Second, architect the secret language. Come up with insider terms and rituals that make your people feel like insiders. Third, engineer the public badge. Design a super clear, visible way for them to show off that they belong. And fourth, and this one's huge, measure identity integration. You need to watch for the signs. Are people using your brand name as a verb? Are they putting it in their social media bios? That's when you know you're winning.
Just keep these 3 things in mind as you do this. Number 1, language is the strongest bond. Seriously, a secret language creates an us faster than anything. Number 2, the win has to be visible. If people succeed with your brand, they need a way to show it off. That's what gives the badge its power. And finally, and this is the ultimate test, mastery isn't just getting a sale. Mastery is when your brand becomes part of someone's answer to, so what are you into? And this all leads us to the final payoff, section 5, from choice to necessity. This is about that transformation from being just another option on the shelf to becoming something people feel they absolutely cannot live without. Because here's the honest truth about the world we live in now. We are drowning in features. Everything can be copied. Utility doesn't last. Functionality is a temporary advantage. The only thing that actually survives in the long run is meaning. If you can give people meaning, you give them a reason to stay, period. I mean, just look at the difference here. Before you do this work, your brand is a choice. You're basically just a vendor burning money to push people through a funnel. But after, your brand becomes a necessity. You stop pushing and you start pulling people in. You're not a vendor anymore. You've become something so much more important. You're literally the infrastructure of their identity.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. Growth isn't linear, it's learned. This whole thing, it's not about finding one magic trick that works forever. It's a constant process of learning. Learning who your people are, what they care about, who they want to be. It's about building a system that feeds that deep human need to belong. And when you get that right, you stop looking for customers because you'll be too busy leading a tribe that will stick with you and will carry your story for you.